There's a kind of silence that follows betrayal, an eerie stillness, not because the noise has stopped, but because your soul has gone quiet. You begin to realize that the person you trusted, the one you let into your most sacred spaces, was never who you thought they were. Their words were masks, their kindness was calculated, their presence conditional. And by the time you saw the truth, it was too late. The damage was done. They had already carved their selfish desires into the softest parts of your being. Cruelty doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers in the form of manipulation. It arrives wrapped in smiles and reassurances, only to later reveal itself through silence when you needed support, abandonment when you begged for loyalty, and contempt when all you ever offered was care. And yet, what did you do in return? You stayed quiet, you blamed yourself, you tried harder, you watered dead plants hoping they would bloom, you explained your worth to people who had already decided you were worthless, and while they walked away cold, untouched, and unbothered, you remained behind with the wreckage, trying to rebuild from the ruins they left behind. But here's the truth no one tells you. Life is not unjust. It may delay its reckoning, but it never denies it. Every cruel act has a return address. Every lie they told, every tear they caused, every moment they made you feel small, it's all recorded, not in some mystical book, but in the intricate moral fabric of the world. Human behavior is not without consequence. What goes out must come back, and it does so in ways far more poetic, far more precise than you or I could ever orchestrate. You see, when someone betrays your kindness, they don't walk away free. They walk away with a debt, an emotional, spiritual, and psychological debt that the universe always collects on. And it doesn't knock on the door gently when it's time to pay. It breaks it down. But here's the nuance. This isn't about revenge. It's not about waiting in the shadows hoping to witness their fall. It's about understanding a fundamental principle of life. You cannot sow cruelty and reap peace. The arc of justice might bend slowly, but it bends with precision. And when it finally reaches them, it won't just match the pain they gave, it will multiply it. Why? Because they weren't just hurting you, they were making a choice. Repeatedly, consciously. They knew you loved them, they knew you trusted them, and they exploited that anyway. So when life finally mirrors back their actions, it won't be subtle. It'll be twice as hard, twice as cutting, twice as devastating, because that's what it takes for some people to understand the weight of their cruelty. You, however, are not here to wish them harm. You are here to understand the law that governs pain and justice. You're here to see that what was done to you was not meaningless. It had weight, and weight always has impact. You survived the fire. They built it, and the circle they started it will end right at their feet. So, now that we've opened the door to truth, let's walk through it. Let's examine the deeper layers of this reality, how life ensures that cruelty never escapes untouched, and why what they gave will return. There's a kind of pain that doesn't fade with time. It lingers in the silence between conversations, in the moments you pretend everything's fine. It lives quietly beneath your smile, woven into the fabric of your everyday life. You move forward, yes, but not untouched, because what they did wasn't just a moment. It was a betrayal, so sharp, so calculated, it cut into the very core of who you are. You remember the nights you couldn't sleep, not because of physical pain, but because your heart refused to find rest. It pounded with confusion, replaying the same question over and over again. Why would they do that to me? You gave them loyalty and they returned it with indifference. You gave them patience and they used it to sharpen their deceit. You stood by them in silence while they humiliated you in front of others. They didn't just hurt you, they made you question yourself, your worth, your sanity. There were days you looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, someone broken, someone exhausted, not from fighting the world, but from fighting to be understood by someone who never even tried to hear you. And still you showed up, still you forgave, still you believed that maybe, just maybe, they'd come around, realize what they were doing and treat you like you mattered, but they never did. And when they left, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, they acted like your pain was an inconvenience, like your breakdowns were drama, like your loyalty was weakness. They moved on with ease, smiling in pictures, thriving in the same world that had left you bleeding. And that's what hurt the most. Not just what they did, but how little it seemed to cost them. But here's the truth that nobody told you when you were drowning in that pain. Life does not forget. It may not have responded in that moment. It may have remained silent while you cried into your pillow, begged for closure, and searched for answers that never came. But it saw. It listened. It recorded every silent scream, every act of cruelty, every betrayal that tore you apart from the inside, because the universe has a memory. You see, energy, especially the kind wrapped in pain and injustice, doesn't just evaporate. It moves, it waits, it circles, and the pain they caused you wasn't just absorbed into nothingness. It was transferred. It became part of a current that one day will come crashing back, not out of revenge, not out of spite, but out of the simple, inescapable law that governs all of us. What you give and what they gave you, abandonment, lies, manipulation, ridicule, coldness, wasn't light. It was heavy. It weighed down your soul. It stole your laughter. It made you feel invisible in rooms you once lit up. That kind of cruelty doesn't just disappear. It collects interest. It builds in silence until life decides the moment of return. So if you've ever wondered whether the pain you carried alone in the dark mattered, let this be your answer. It did. It still does. Life didn't forget. It was simply storing every moment they broke you, preparing to teach them the lesson they refused to learn through your kindness. The same pain they handed you so easily will one day be placed into their own hands, but not in the same way. Life doesn't repeat, it intensifies, because some lessons aren't understood until they're felt deeply, personally, and painfully. There's a dangerous kind of person who walks through life with a perfect mask, charming, composed, and carefully put together. To the outside world, they seem gentle, kind, trustworthy. They know how to speak in tones that melt resistance and how to mimic empathy without ever feeling it. They learn your insecurities, not to protect you, but to control you. And for the longest time, you believed them. You believed the version of themselves they gave to you because it looked like love, it sounded like loyalty. But underneath that polished mask was something else entirely. Something dark, selfish, manipulative. They played a role, and you were just another stage they performed on. The worst part? No one else saw it. While you cried yourself to sleep, they laughed in public. While you questioned your sanity, they played the victim. They twisted stories, painted you as unstable, too emotional, too sensitive, and because they were so good at pretending, others believed them. You were left alone, branded as the problem, while they walked away with sympathy that should have belonged to you. That kind of injustice doesn't just hurt, it makes you question everything. How could someone be so cruel, so calculated, and still be admired? How could they build their lies so convincingly that people clapped for them while you were suffocating in silence? But the truth is, masks are not permanent. They crack under pressure, they melt in heat, they slip when worn too long. And life, oh life, is a master at revealing what people try to hide. There will come a day, unexpected, unannounced, when the very image they tried to protect will begin to collapse. The same audience they deceived will begin to see the inconsistencies. The same friends they lied to will start noticing patterns. The charm will lose its grip. The story will stop making sense, and suddenly they'll find themselves exposed. Because pretending is exhausting, you can only lie so long before the weight of the truth begins to leak through your performance, and the people they once fooled will not remain blind forever. Life has a brutal yet poetic way of forcing truth into the light, especially when that truth involves the pain of the innocent. Their reputation will begin to unravel in the same way they unraveled your peace. The same way they smiled while you suffered will be the same way people will smile when they finally see who they really are. Not because falsehood always collapses under its own weight. And don't forget, people talk. They observe. They remember the inconsistencies, the little red flags they once ignored. It might not happen today. It might not happen tomorrow, but eventually someone will say, that doesn't add up. And then another and another until the illusion breaks. When that moment comes, they won't be able to control the narrative anymore. Their attempts to defend themselves will sound hollow. Their manipulations, once so clever, will feel transparent. They'll try to spin the story again, but it won't land. The same charm they once used as a weapon will now sound like noise, desperate, rehearsed, and empty. And in that unraveling, the truth will speak for itself. There's an old, unshakable truth woven into the very core of this world. You become what you choose, and what you become finds its way back to you. They chose betrayal, not once, not by accident, but again and again, fully aware of what they were doing. They picked manipulation over honesty, cruelty over compassion, power over love. And while they may have worn the mask of innocence, their actions spoke louder than any apology they could ever offer. They didn't just betray you, they became betrayal. And people like that rarely recognize the depth of their wrongdoing, not until they taste their own not until they stand on the other side of the story, because for a long time they walked through life unscathed, thinking they had outsmarted the consequences, believing their charm and cleverness had bought them immunity. But life doesn't work that way. No one escapes the mirror it eventually holds up. There will come a time when someone will walk into their life wearing the same disguise they once wore with you. That person will promise loyalty, affection, and stability. They'll say the right things, make the right moves, give the illusion of safety, just like they did to you. And in their eagerness to be admired, to be wanted, they'll fall for it. They'll trust the wrong one, completely, blindly. They'll let their guard down, and just when they begin to feel secure, when they start to believe they finally found someone who sees them, values them, that's when it'll happen. The knife will slip in, clean and quiet, just the way they used to do it. They'll be lied to, ignored, deceived. And the worst part, no one will believe them, just like no one believed you. They'll cry in silence, their voice muted by the very kind of indifference they once used against you. They'll wonder why no one sees their pain, why the world doesn't rush to defend them, why the person they trusted could be so cold, so heartless, so eerily familiar. And that familiarity will sting, because deep down, some part of them will recognize that they're now the victim of the same cruelty they once justified, once excused, once inflicted without remorse. They'll try to make sense of it, they'll try to bargain with life, but the truth will sit heavy on their chest. This is what I did to someone else. That realization doesn't come gently. It arrives like a storm, sudden, overwhelming, and irreversible. They'll begin to understand the sleepless nights, the anxious days, the trembling hands, and the hollow ache you once carried. They'll relive everything they made you endure, but this time from the inside. Not as the one who walked away untouched, but as the one left shattered. And they won't be able to escape it, because no amount of pretending can erase the echo of their own choices now crashing back onto them. This is how life restores balance, not through revenge, but through poetic justice, through reflection so raw, so undeniable that it breaks even the most stubborn egos. And in that breaking, something happens. They are forced to feel, to finally experience the depth of the pain they once disregarded. They'll be betrayed, not by accident, but by design. Arrogance has a way of making people feel invincible. It convinces them they can mistreat others without consequence, that they are the exception to every rule. The ones who hurt you, those who mocked your pain, dismissed your loyalty, and used your love as leverage. They didn't just betray you. They elevated themselves in their own mind. They believed they were untouchable, that you would never leave, that no matter what they did, you'd keep coming back, because your heart was soft and your patience endless. They laughed behind your back, certain that they had you figured out. They wore their indifference like a crown, mistaking your silence for weakness. They surrounded themselves with people who fed their ego, who clapped for their cruelty because they hadn't yet seen the truth. They strutted through life as if they were above consequence, above the pain they caused. above the reality they left you in. But arrogance is always a fragile kingdom, and eventually every throne built on pride collapses under the weight of its own emptiness. There will come a time, a subtle season, or perhaps a sudden moment when the people they used to impress will begin to disappear, not because of anything dramatic, but because truth has a way of changing the atmosphere. The performance grows tired, the act wears thin, and the attention they once basked in will begin to fade. Slowly, the invitations stop coming, the conversations dry up, the people who once adored them start to see through the cracks. Maybe they notice the manipulation, maybe they experience it firsthand, or maybe life simply moves on and no one chases after someone who was never real to begin with. And in that shift, something terrifying happens to them. Silence. Not the kind you longed for in your own healing, not the peaceful kind, but the suffocating kind, the one that echoes through empty rooms and reminds them of every bridge they burned, every heart they bruised, every person they pushed away, thinking they could replace them with ease. Suddenly their phone doesn't ring, their messages go unanswered, their confidence begins to shake. Because the ones who live off validation cannot survive without an audience. And now there's no one left to applaud them. They will try to reach out, but not to apologize, only to recapture what they lost, to fill the vacuum that now surrounds them. But what they once called friends have grown wiser. What they once called loyalty was only convenience. And now there's no one willing to play along with their illusions. And this is where the shift becomes brutal. The same confidence they once used to belittle you will turn on them. Their pride will begin to feel like poison. The walls they built to keep everyone beneath them will now keep everyone away, and in that isolation, they will be forced to sit with the one person they've always run from, themselves. No distractions, no adoration, no applause, just silence. And in that silence, the weight of their actions will begin to echo louder than any voice. Every betrayal, every cruel word, every moment of mockery, they'll all return, not as memories, but as companions in their loneliness. Because isolation has a voice, and it speaks the truth arrogance refused to hear. There is something sacred about peace when you've never truly known it, when your life has been a battlefield of emotions, riddled with confusion, betrayal, and unanswered questions. Peace doesn't arrive like a quiet breeze, it arrives like a revelation. It's not just the absence of noise, but the healing of the internal storm. And yet, for so long, that peace felt unreachable for you. It felt like something meant for others. While you stood in the aftermath of what they did to you, peace felt like a myth, a cruel joke that mocked your suffering. Because how could peace exist when your heart was still bleeding? They had left you in chaos, not just emotionally, but mentally, spiritually. They disrupted your world and then had the audacity to walk away as if nothing happened. They moved on to new people, new situations, new chapters, seemingly untouched while you were left gathering the shattered pieces of what they broke. And the world, in its strange indifference, seemed to reward their behavior. They smiled while you cried. They thrived while you struggled. They kept gaining while you kept losing. It made you question everything, your faith, your worth, your very reality. But life doesn't deal justice instantly, it deals it with precision, because what's born in cruelty can never end in peace. You see, peace doesn't come when you force it. It comes when life has moved its pieces in perfect alignment, and slowly, without warning, you feel it. The sting of their memory won't hurt as much. The silence they left behind won't echo as loud. The questions will lose their urgency and the pain will lose its sharpness. You'll wake up one day and realize you didn't think about them, that their name didn't carry weight anymore, that your heart isn't carrying the same heaviness it once did. And that is peace. Not the removal of what happened, but the release of its grip on your soul. But what's most powerful, what brings true satisfaction to the spirit, is that peace doesn't just come to you out of nowhere. It finds you when life begins to turn its attention toward them. Because chaos, the very thing they left you drowning in, has finally found its way to their doorstep. While you're learning how to breathe again, they're beginning to suffocate. While you're discovering yourself, they're losing pieces of who they pretended to be. While your spirit is softening, theirs is hardening under the pressure of consequences they never saw coming. Their perfect plans are unraveling. The people they tried to impress are turning away. The very things they once used to destroy others are now destroying them, and they can't hide from it, not this time. Because life isn't just poetic, it's thorough. It ensures that what was broken is restored and what was stolen is returned, not always in form, but always in balance. You'll begin to notice small shifts. You'll hear whispers of the storms brewing in their life. The peace they claimed to have was surface level, easily disturbed. And now, the chaos they orchestrated in your world is rising in theirs. The lies they told are catching up. The bridges they burned are no longer fixable. And in their panic, they'll start doing what they never did for you. They'll reach, they'll beg, they'll break. But while they're unraveling, you'll feel lighter. Not because you've forgotten what happened, but because you've outgrown it. You'll no longer be stuck in the cycle of pain and memory. You'll have crossed over to something they never expected you to reach: freedom. The very chaos they thought would bury you has become your reason to rise. And this is where life restores its order. When peace enters your life, not as a temporary relief, but as a lasting truth. It's the moment when you realize you didn't need their apology. You didn't need closure. You didn't need them to understand what they did. All you needed was time, alignment, and the inevitable force of divine justice. And now, while their world trembles, you finally stand still. People often don't realize the value of something when it's right in front of them, especially when they're used to taking and never giving. And that's exactly what they did to you. They took you for granted. Not just your presence, but everything that came with it. Your loyalty, your sacrifices, your patience, your silence, your love. You gave without keeping score. You stayed when others would have walked away. You poured yourself out, hoping that one day they'd see what they had. But they didn't. They used your kindness as a safety net. They thought your forgiveness was permission. They believed that no matter how they treated you, you'd always be there. You were dependable, so they depended on you to carry more than your share of the weight. You were understanding, so they expected you to understand even their worst behavior. You were soft, so they believed they could be cruel without consequence, and in their mind, you were replaceable. They assumed that someone like you comes around often, that they could always find someone else who would give without asking, who would tolerate their moods, their distance, their disrespect. They believed that their charm, their games, their control would keep working forever. And while they smiled at others, entertained new distractions, and left you questioning your worth, they never stopped to think about the damage they were causing. Because people who take things for granted never pause to consider the weight of their absence until it's too late. But what they didn't expect was that you would eventually stop showing up. They didn't see the day coming when your patience would run out. They didn't anticipate the silence that followed your withdrawal. They thought they had time. They thought you'd never find the strength to walk away. Not really, but you did. And when you left, you took something with you that they never thought they'd miss until it was gone. Peace, authenticity, loyalty, a safe place to land. At first, they didn't feel the loss. People like that rarely do. They convinced themselves they upgraded. They tried to laugh louder, smile bigger, fill your space with noise and distraction, but nothing felt right. No matter how many new conversations, no matter how much attention they received, it was all shallow, empty, temporary. Because the truth is, no one can replace what's real. Now that same loyalty they tossed aside has become their deepest craving. The comfort they once dismissed now feels like a void. They remember the way you understood them when no one else did, the way you noticed the small things, the way you stood by them in storms they created themselves, the way your presence brought a calm to their chaos. And suddenly, the silence becomes louder than they can handle. But it's not just nostalgia. They're haunted. Haunted by how easy it was for them to ignore your efforts. Haunted by how you begged them to listen and they chose pride instead. Haunted by the look in your eyes when they disappointed you one too many times. Haunted by every message they left unanswered. Every apology they owed and never gave. Every moment they had to fix it and didn't. And that haunting doesn't go away. It follows them into every new relationship. They'll try to find someone who gives what you gave, who loves like you loved. But it won't feel the same. It can't. Because what you gave came from a place of purity, and purity can't be mimicked. It's not something people come across every day. It's rare. And once it's gone, it leaves behind a space that no one else can fill, not truly. They'll begin to feel a restlessness they can't explain, a discontent in places they used to enjoy. They'll start comparing every new face to yours, every new bond to the connection they so carelessly let die. But they'll never say it out loud. Pride will keep them quiet. Arrogance will keep them pretending. But inside, the reality will be eating away at them like slow poison. They'll start wondering what it would be like if they had done things differently. If they had responded with care instead of indifference, if they had stayed present instead of distant, if they had appreciated you instead of assuming you'd always be there. But time doesn't offer refunds. The moments they wasted won't come back. The words they didn't say can't be spoken retroactively, and the damage they caused has already been done. So they sit with the weight of regret, not because you want them to suffer, but because life demands balance. And now, the very thing they devalued has become the echo they can't silence. The peace they once felt with you will become a phantom that follows them through every chapter. A reminder of what they once had, what they once abused, and what they'll never get back. There is a quiet justice that doesn't need to be announced. It doesn't arrive with sirens or declarations. It arrives slowly, methodically, like footsteps approaching in the dark. And that is exactly how karma works. It doesn't forget, it doesn't rush, and it doesn't miss. It waits, it watches, it learns the pattern of a person's choices, and then, at the right time, it delivers its verdict not in anger, but in balance. And when it does, the weight it brings is far heavier than the pain it seeks to return, because it's not just about equal measure, it's about impact. You carried the pain they caused quietly. You wore it in the way your hands trembled while holding back tears, in the way you kept showing up with a smile even when you were breaking inside. They never saw the sleepless nights, the conversations you rehearsed but never got to have, the way you kept blaming yourself, thinking that maybe if you were better, kinder, calmer, stronger, they wouldn't have treated you like that. They never noticed that their words cut deeper than knives, that their silence was its own kind of violence. But life noticed. It saw how you kept your heart open in the face of repeated betrayal. How you hoped when you had every reason to give up, how you defended them even when they mocked you behind your back, and while they walked away from the wreckage without looking back, life stayed behind, picking up the pieces with you, storing every detail in the vault of justice. And now it's their turn. But here's the part they never expected. The pain doesn't return in the same form. It returns amplified. Because the universe knows that only amplified pain can reach the heart of someone who never felt empathy when they were doing harm. They didn't just cause you to suffer. They taught you what abandonment felt like, what humiliation felt like, what emotional exhaustion really means. They made your soul ache in places even you didn't know existed. And now life is going to teach them the same lesson, but deeper. Harder. It begins in subtle ways. The people they thought would always support them begin to drift away. The admiration they used to command becomes indifference. The plans they carefully constructed begin to fall apart at the seams. The very confidence they used to control others now begins to betray them. And slowly they realize they're losing control. The grip they once had on people, situations, even their own image is slipping. But it doesn't stop there. Life doesn't just take, it mirrors. They will be made to feel small in rooms they used to dominate. They will be left unread by people they crave attention from. They will be misunderstood, judged, blamed for things they didn't do, just as you were. They will scream for help in ways you used to, but this time, no one will answer. Not because the world is cruel, but because it is it gives back what you send out, and they sent out pain, deception, and pride. The most brutal part of their full circle is not the suffering itself, but the awareness of it. The realization that the very pain they once dismissed in others is now inhabiting their own body. The same type of heartache they called drama is now keeping them up at night. The same abandonment they once justified is now rotting away their sense of stability. And unlike you, they won't have someone like you standing beside them waiting with open arms, because they burned that bridge. They did it smiling, thinking they'd never need to cross it again. But life is circular, and when they find themselves in the same darkness they once left you in, they won't know how to survive it. Because you endured it with love in your heart, they will endure it with guilt. That's the difference. Guilt multiplies pain. It turns discomfort into torment, loneliness into punishment. And that's where their full circle becomes heavier than yours. Because while you carried your pain wondering why someone could hurt you like that, they will carry their pain knowing exactly why it's happening to them. There's a weight that comes from realization. When they finally see themselves for who they've become, when they finally understand what they did to someone who loved them unconditionally, it will crush them. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every memory of your kindness will now feel like a dagger. Every moment they laughed at your pain will become a scene they can't erase. And the worst part, they'll have no one to blame, because they'll know this is the circle I created, and what goes around never returns the same. You never asked for revenge. You never wanted anyone to suffer. All you ever wanted was to be treated with the same honesty, loyalty, and love you so willingly gave. You weren't perfect, but you were sincere, and that sincerity was used against you. Your softness became their target, your trust became their playground, and for a time it felt like the world had sided with them, like the cruel could thrive while the kind were left behind wounded and alone. But now you see what they never did. The truth always circles back. What is done in shadows always steps into the light. And those who gave cruelty so freely are now standing in the very storms they created, storms that carry their own names built from the very pain they once mocked in others. You are not bitter, you are not broken, you are becoming, because pain didn't destroy you, it refined you. Their betrayal didn't end you, it awakened you. And while they laughed, you learned. While they forgot you, you found yourself. And in that quiet transformation, you gained something they never had: depth, resilience, peace, and the sacred power of self-worth. Let them watch from the sidelines as your life begins to flourish. Let them feel the sting of silence where your loyalty used to be. Let them sit with their guilt while you rise with grace. Because the greatest justice is not their downfall. It's your healing. It's not their regret. It's your rebirth. So to anyone out there carrying the weight of someone else's cruelty, wondering if life will ever bring justice, it will. It already has. The circle has begun to close, and what they gave, it is returning twice as hard. Thank you for watching. If this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. Let others know they're not alone and their pain will not go unnoticed.